My name is Elliot Ruchowitz-Roberts. I was actually born Elliot Ruchowitz, but this was just before the Second World War, and so my father, to kind of protect our family from what he knew was happening in Europe, and also because of the anti-Semitism that he faced in this country, changed our family name to Roberts. And for many years I was known as Elliot Roberts. And after 9/11, I decided to reclaim my name, and so I am now Elliot Ruchowitz-Roberts. I grew up on the East Coast in Brooklyn, went to Eastern schools, which meant I never would have heard of Robinson Jeffers, simply because he is not much understood, appreciated, or read on the East Coast. And in fact, the first time I heard of Robinson Jeffers was the day he died. And that was in the Midwest in a small town called Oxford, Ohio, where I was teaching at the time. And one of my colleagues, a wonderful poet, got drunk a little earlier than usual that day. And when I asked him about it, he said, well, Robinson Jeffers had died. The next recollection I have of Jeffers is actually being when I went to Berkeley. And not in any of my classes, but one of my teachers mentioned when I indicated I was coming to Monterey to teach at the community college that I would enjoy Robinson Jeffers, that country, Jeffers country. But when I came here, I really had very, very little knowledge of Jeffers. Eventually, I was asked to serve as a judge on what is now the annual Poetry Prize for the Robinson Jeffers Torhouse Foundation, and then asked to serve on the board. And I continue to serve on the board of the Robinson Jeffers Torhouse Foundation. Currently, I'm first vice president. I also coordinate the annual Poetry Prize and the annual Reading and Performance Series, and I'm also a docent at Torhouse. All through these years, my appreciation of Jeffers has grown tremendously, not just as a great poet, but also as a great teacher, because I think he had an understanding of human nature, of our place in this world, of what motivates us psychologically, historically, so that I look to him many times for guidance, actually, whether it be of psychological nature or spiritual nature. He is probably one of the most underrated of American poets. He's rarely taught in schools, but he has never been out of print. People come to Jeffers on their own usually. He has a wonderful grassroots following. All major American poets know Jeffers. Many feel they have an indebtedness to Jeffers. And he has had tremendous effect outside the world of academia, even outside the world of literature. His adaptation of Euripides' Medea was used as a libretto in an opera, and his poem, The Beaks of Eagles, was actually used by the Beach Boys in California Suite. Artists are drawn to him, especially photographers. He was friendly with Edward Weston, Ansel Adams, Morley Baer, all of whom felt very indebted to Jeffers and were very much attached to his poetry. So he's had actually a profound effect on American culture, and especially on the American West, his vision of the coast, his vision of this land. And what makes Jeffers really special is that he wrote from this landscape that we live in here. He and his wife eventually settled on Carmel Point, where over a number of years he built a number of structures, including a Tor House and Hawk Tower. And one of the things that makes Jeffers unique as a poet is that his source of inspiration is the very land he lived on. So if I were to give you a tour of Tor House, we could just walk through the grounds and I could recite or read poems, all of which are site-specific. And I don't think you can really say that about any other writer. He drew his inspiration from the life he lived at Tor House, from the stories he heard down the coast, and perhaps that's one of the reasons that he's so underappreciated on the East Coast, is people have no sense of what this coast is like, what this land is like, the kind of challenges it poses to people who try to survive in it. Jeffers built Hawk Tower. It took him 5 years. It took me a long time to realize that up at the top of the tower, the open parapet at the top, there's only a single seat, and that was Jeffers' seat. And he would go up there most evenings, glass of wine, last cigarette, look at the night sky. He knew his night sky very well. He was very well versed in modern science. His brother was an internationally known astronomer at Lick Observatory. So he would check out that night sky and kind of really knew his astronomy. When he built the dining room, he built it down below. He built it so that his sons, he had twin sons born in 1916, so that his sons would have a place to entertain their friends. Here's a poem, Jeffers on the tower, his sons in the house. It's called October Weekend. It is autumn still, but at 3 in the morning, all the magnificent wonders of midwinter midnight, blue dog star, Orion, red Aldebaran, the ermine-furred Pleiades parading above the gable of the house. Their music is their shining, and the house beats like a heart with dance music, because our boys have grown to the age when girls are their music. There is wind in the trees and the gray ocean's music on the rocks. I am warming my blood with starlight, not with girls' eyes, but really the night is quite mad with music. One of the rooms in Tor House, kind of parlor where the family also ate their meals, there was a kitchen, a bathroom, and a guest bedroom on the ground floor, and the family slept upstairs in the attic. And the guest bedroom was a place where guests would stay, and a great many people visited the Jeffers. Sometimes Jeffers would actually read his boys to sleep there at night. And from the very beginning, Jeffers had another purpose in mind for this bed. And he made that clear in a poem called The Bed by the Window. I chose the bed downstairs by the sea window for a good deathbed when we built the house. It lies ready, waiting, unused unless by some guest in a 12-month who hardly suspects its latter purpose. I often regard it with neither dislike nor desire, rather with both so equaled that they kill each other, and a crystalline interest remains alone. We are safe to finish what we have to finish, and then it will sound rather like music when the patient Damon behind the screen of sea rock and sky thumps with his staff and calls thrice, "Come, Jeffers." And in fact, on January 20th, 1962, he did die in that bed. And it snowed that day in Carmel. And not only did it snow, but the snow stuck on the ground. And this created an irony and a synchronicity. The irony was this. Originally, the land that Tor House was built on was the site of the first golf course on the Monterey Peninsula. And the fellow who was developing it went off to fight in the war. Jeffers came into an inheritance and was able to buy a number of lots of the golf course. And for many years afterwards, Una would dig up golf balls while she was gardening. Well, the big news that day in the Herald, the local paper, was not the death of Robinson Jeffers. Here, a major figure in world literature dies. He gets second billing. What is the top billing? The Crosby Golf Tournament has been snowed out. The synchronicity is this. Jeffers was born January 10th, 1887, in a blizzard outside of Allegheny, Pennsylvania. So he came into this world and he left this world in the snow. Many of the poems that Jeffers wrote had to do with the Big Sur coast, especially the landscape he so loved. And here's a poem called Return. A little too wise, a little too abstract, it is time for us to kiss the earth again. It is time to let the leaves rain from the skies, let the rich life run to the roots again. I will go down to the lovely Sur rivers and dip my arms in them up to the shoulders. I will make my accounting where the alder leaf quivers in the ocean wind over the river boulders. I will touch things and no more thoughts that breed like mouthless mayflies darkening the skies. The insect clouds that blind our passionate hawks, so they cannot strike, hardly can fly. Things are the hawk's food, and noble is the mountain, O noble Pico Blanco, steep sea wave of marble. Tor House is now protected and administered by a nonprofit foundation. If you'd like to visit Tor House, we do have tours on Fridays and Saturdays. They start on the hour at 10, and the last tour begins at 3. And Tor House is located out on Carmel Point in Carmel. If you wish to make reservations, you can call 624-1813.